Wow, it is warm here in Seattle. I'd be lying to you if it wasn't. And I'll tell you, maybe I need AC. Maybe I got to start dropping the big bucks and getting AC in this house. Well, let's go ahead and get started here, folks. Welcome, 12th. 12th man, 12th lady, and Hawks Nation around the world. This is your show, 12 for 12, hosted by yours truly, yes, me, Paul Beyer. I hope you are doing fantastic this evening. I have a absolute blowout show tonight going. I'm calling it a special edition. Yeah, that's right. I am going to be welcoming shortly here, just in a few minutes, 15 minutes, the official Seahawks podcast team of Brandan and Adam. I cannot wait to talk to these two gentlemen. They're pros. I'm really the rookie in this whole thing. And we're going to go through the Hawks 12 this evening. Obviously, first I need to get to the quick takes, and I need to do my old commentary. But we're going to be talking to those gentlemen here shortly and going through the show together. In the middle, a little bit after the bottom of the hour, I am going to be welcoming Jason Coiner. Jason, if you don't know the name, he's the gentleman behind the Madden 15 Legion of Boom cover escapade, as I'm calling it. Jason is awesome. He has been working his tail off trying to make this happen. The change.org petition, which I know most of you, I hope most of you that listen to the show have already signed it. If you haven't, it's well over 8,000 signatures. We want to get this thing big. Today, EA announced that they actually leaked the photo of Richard Sherman on the cover, but we're still trying to get a special edition made, and Jason's going to join us and talk a little bit about that. So I'm excited to do that for a few minutes. Let's go ahead and get into the quick takes. We've got a busy show tonight, so we'll get rolling here. First things first, Pete Carroll has won the Jack Horrigan Award for his accessibility and enthusiastic cooperation with the media. So kind of like the Good Guy Award that Russell Wilson got a couple weeks ago. Well, Pete Carroll got kind of the same one with the media. So shows that we are definitely from top to bottom in this organization, friends of the media, which I think helps. I kind of am dismayed by the fact that they have to, kind of deal with them in such a way where it's almost more about the media than it is about what's actually going on in front of them. But regardless of that, Pete Carroll does a really tremendous job of not just amusing the media, amusing people like myself who get to watch all the stuff, but not making it just drawn out and boring. On top of that, the Schneid, yes, the Schneid, John Schneider, had a handwritten message to Horace Miller, and I've talked about Horace on the show, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up. A linebacker out of UTEP, very, very athletic, wasn't selected in the draft. He's an undrafted free agent. And I just wanted to read you the letter if you hadn't seen this. But, again, the Schneid took time out of his day, a very busy man, to write to a undrafted free agent who's still a member of this club a handwritten note. And it read simply, Horace, I just wanted to let you know that since you arrived, you have been impressive and that we recognize all your hard work so far. Just know that while you know you have a ways to go, that we feel that you may have a very cool upside. Be confident in your skills as you get ready to prepare for training camp. Know that you really have to bring it on special teams. All the best, John Schneider. Well, I'll tell you what, I think that's big, stating that a guy like this out of nowhere is getting this type of, exchange with the GM of the team. Have a chance to make this ball club. And boy, that is tough sledding considering the talent level, which I'm going to talk at length about with Brandan and Adam later. But the talent level of this team from top to bottom, every single position group, for having a guy like this, again, just goes to show you we find gems all over the place. Moving on, Andrew Pulu, defensive tackle out of Federal Way, by way of Eastern Washington, played for the Huskies for 1 year here locally. he was released today by the Seahawks. And I'll tell you, I think this guy's going to find a team. I really do. I think really it was just a logistical thing where we had Kevin Williams now being signed from the Vikings, the veteran, which we discussed at Linked last year, 11-year veteran playing for the Vikings, a stud, Pro Bowler, All-Pro type player who's ecstatic to be here. But bringing him on the roster, obviously, it creates a space that we need to get rid of, and Andrew Pula was that body. So wish Andrew the absolute best. The Seahawks will open 12 training camp practices to fans at the VMAC beginning July 25th and concluding on August 12th. More than 35,000 fans have registered already, especially for last summer, for this camp and for these positions. I just want to remind everybody, do this ASAP. You go to trainingcamp.seahawks.com, and that's where you sign up for it. So get on that ASAP. Also, some events happening here soon. Russell Wilson has a passing academy. Around the country, he's doing a number of these. But the dates that are going to be done locally here in Seattle are July 10th and July 12th, both, well, I should say the first one at Starfire Sports, the second one, the 12th, at University of Washington. They're both from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. These are tremendous opportunities for youth in the area, so I would definitely take advantage of it. But do check it out on thepassingacademy.com. That's the Passing Academy, or I'm sorry, back up. thepassacademy.com. thepassacademy.com. That's the web address to get more information. Additionally, a lot of volunteers are coming, especially from the Seahawkers clubs, chapters around the area. There's a number of them obviously throughout the country and world, 41 I think in total. But visit Seahawkers.org to sign up for either a chapter locally. It's $15 a person, or $25 for a family dues, and those are for annual dues. But do check into that because they are one of the key groups that's working with the volunteer aspects of helping Russell with his camp. Lastly, 12 for 12s can now be found on Stitcher, as well as Xbox, Music, and Zune radio services. So we are expanding not only with the Double Overtime team, but having my show available with those different sources on top of iTunes and TuneIn Radio. So there's just areas, more places for you to find the podcast. Again, these are for the on-demand service side. So when you download any one of these programs, and these are kind of the big boys, especially with people that have Xboxes at home, as long as you go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, go ahead and find it in the search bar, search Double Overtime, space in between the two words. You'll find us and find me as 12 for 12s being my show. Now, interesting point here is that, again, these aren't available typically for 2 to 3 days afterwards. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to find the latest show. All right, a couple shows I'll talk about at the end that I want you to check out, a number of the last 3 or so, but last week with football girl Jamie Nicole, definitely check that out, and all those shows are available on YouTube, the interview segments, along with my commentary. Lastly, just again, I appreciate everybody and their following of not only the show, but visiting the website daily, and the continuing growth of Twitter followers. Again, I have some goals there. I appreciate everyone trying to do that and help me with it going forward. But let's keep it going. Let's keep up the work, even through the hard work of the summer, the heat. But this is a time of kind of hopefully relaxation and wind ourselves up and get ready, save those vocal cords for the season ahead. But 5 weeks of vacation now leading into a training camp at the end of July. All right, I'm going to get to the commentary now, but before that, just want to mention one of our sponsors, TYJ Movement. Check out all the great gear at tyjmovement.com. Their hip and stylish designs will dress you for every occasion. Do yourself the pleasure of joining up with the TYJ Movement at tyjmovement.com. Remember to use Paul20T to get 20% off on any of your orders. And, again, go there and check it out now. That's at tyjmovement.com. All right, opening commentary this evening. Pete's fantastic offseason. After last week's final mini-camp practice, Pete Carroll, first statement, as soon as he got off the field to the media, was as follows. We've had just a fantastic offseason. We had such a great attendance, such great focus. We've seen so many guys come back to us that we are on a roster last year that didn't participate that really gave us a boost along with the new guys from the draft and free agent signings. And the way we worked, we got a lot done, and we are really excited about it. The only two players that, in my opinion, have the potential to miss any part of training camp coming up after July 25th are going to be Sidney Rice and Bruce Irvin. Sidney with the knee surgery, after coming off the knee surgery of last year, and Bruce coming off the labrum clean out in his hip. When I started to do my analysis of the team's position for myself after camp wrapped up here recently, I couldn't help but feel giddy. We're healthy for the most part. We're better from an experience perspective in many of our key spots. Finally, we're deep with young, hungry, and extremely talented players who have all impressed Pete Carroll. I mean, ranging from either Therrell Simon, Jesse Williams, Corey Toomer, Greg Scruggs. Those are just some of them. But these are just some of the best we need to come up to this level to replace the depth we lost this past offseason. Additionally, the rookies from this year draft also are making waves. Paul Richardson has been a firecracker at wide receiver, a true deep threat with terrifying speed to opponents. I mean, this guy's crazy fast, folks. When you put Paul and Percy on the field at the same time, the stress on the defenses could be a major area for us to attack. Others like Cassius Marsh, Justin Britt, Kevin Norwood have all been good in camp to this point. When they put the pads on, things could change, but otherwise things look very, very good. We're stacked, folks. I'm not kidding about this. We have so much talent on this roster. I'm now convinced we'll be better this season than in 2013. Now, that's not to say we're going to win the whole enchilada. There are still a lot of hurdles to get through, along with training camp, which after that I'll start to really make my determination of what I think will happen this next season. But as it stands, we are looking not just good, but real good. So when Coach Carroll makes a statement like fantastic offseason, I can't help but think of Pete grinning like Patton as he watches his Third Army make the march across France in horribly cold conditions to relieve the U.S. troops at Bastogne as part of the Battle of the Bulge. Pete is not only a free spirit. He's a man that understands history. He has taken all of the things he's learned in his career from the likes of great coaches like Bud Grant to turn this magical mystery tour we as 12s now ride on into a truly fantastic ride. As 12s, we must keep our part and rest those vocal cords, as I said before, for this season ahead. Louder is best. And we must be better in 2014. Thank you, Maestro Pete, for making this ride become a reality. Fantastic might adequately describe the offseason, but unbelievable would be better with a repeat next February. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we're going to come back with the panel, the gentlemen from the Seahawkers official podcast, Adam and Brandan. I'm very excited to talk to these gents. But beforehand, I just want to mention all the other double overtime programs. Again, tune in every Monday and Wednesday. We've had a change up in our schedule, as you guys know. But new programs are going to be on Monday. Double OT will be on Wednesday, and that obviously will be with me, Tim, and Barry. My show continues on Tuesday, 12 for 12s, from 7 to 8:30 Pacific time. And then you have Fourth and Short Thursday, Battle of the Fans, as well as the new show by the ladies, Shelby and Jan. So check those out. Do follow them. And, again, thank you to everybody that does listen to our programs here on Double Overtime Network. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come right back. You are listening to 12 for 12s Radio. This is your host, Paul Byer, and we'll be back in just a second. Thank you again for everyone. This is 12 for 12's Radio with your host, Paul Beyer. I am now joined by my panel show segment guests for this evening, the special edition of 12 for 12's Radio with the Seahawkers, the official, I want to use that, official Seahawkers podcast team of Brandan and Adam. Gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
Doing real well. Thanks for having us. Yeah, I got to make sure that you got the official in there, the official podcast of the official booster club of the Seattle Seahawks. It's good for my ego that we do that officially. Yes.
I was lucky enough to talk with your president, the El Presidente, as I like to call him, Gene Hushak, a few weeks ago, and this whole world of the community effort, the group that the Seahawkers chapters do out there, not just here locally in Seattle, but all over the country and now world, I guess. It's really amazing to see that the 12 fandom has grown, but also the work in the community has spilled over. Why don't you guys take a few minutes? I know some of my audience might not be as well in tune with some of the things going on with not only yourselves, your show, but also the work with the club. I'd love to find out a little bit more of that, but why don't you just go through each of you and start with Brandan and tell everyone a little about yourself and how you got to this whole situation.
Yeah, you bet. So one of the things that I've been doing, probably since 2008, was back about the time where I joined the Military Seahawkers Club, and I was just about out of the Navy, and Tracy Williams, who's the Military Seahawkers Club president, she was deploying at the time over to Afghanistan, and she was looking for somebody who could take over what she had been doing, which really was providing updates for troops serving overseas, and that's kind of how the Military Seahawkers group formed, partly around that, but also partly around as a way to provide color guard for the Seahawks games, the military folks that stand behind the anthem here at the game. So it started out with a really small group, and it kind of grew from there. And so when she deployed, I took over and just started writing updates for everybody that was serving overseas, and we've kind of grown the group from there. And then the podcast really it came about as just another way to get that message out to troops serving overseas and our military folks. And Bruce Bright, who was the president of the Seahawkers at the time, we reached out to him and said, this is something that we want to do. How about we do it for the entire Seahawkers group, not just the Military Seahawkers?
And obviously it's turned out well. How long has it been that you guys have been doing this? And is it a weekly show, Adam?
Yeah, we actually started this back in August of last year, and throughout the season we're weekly, and we actually did a great job of that. I'm actually kind of proud of us. I didn't know that we'd be able to do that, but I think the only break we took throughout the season was for the bye week. Through the off season we've been a lot less, maybe about once a month. Mainly because it's summer and there's things to do, like play yard games and drink beer. So we've been busy with that, but it's been a fun ride. I've actually known Brandan since kindergarten. Grew up together in Kalispell, Montana. And
we rode the bench together in 8th grade on our basketball team.
He played a little more than me.
I could play defense.
That's how you get close.
Yeah, exactly. So as we both got to be adults, he was off in the Navy, and we didn't have a lot of contact. He ended up moving back to Missoula, Montana, where we're both now, and where we do the show. And I had started another podcast and had Brandan in a few times. He's like, hey, this is fun. Let's do a Seahawkers podcast. And then with his connections with the Military Seahawkers and the Seahawkers organization in general, we were able to get this started, and it's been a heck of a lot of fun.
Well, I got to tell you, I've listened to your show a few times. Obviously, I understand how much work goes into this. I'm a one-man crew, but just to not only stay in the know, but also be able to translate the knowledge, the research that we do over to the 12s out there. It's not as easy as just talking. You've got to really kind of figure out and know your stuff. I was lucky enough to play college football, and I guess I joined a little bit of understanding there. But the bottom line is that we do this for the fun of it. As I've said on many occasions, all these different podcasts talking about Seahawks, as far as I'm concerned, we're all brothers and sisters in doing this. And I love the fact that you guys were on tonight and willing to do this panel show. let's go ahead and jump into some of the questions. I'd love to, first of all, find out, we haven't talked before, and again, my audience might not have heard some of your reactions from this past season, but just from the Super Bowl win, I want to hear from both of you. Brandon, starting with Brandon, what was your fondest memory of that game, either moment, reaction, whatever it might have been?
I go back and forth just because there were so many great moments and have such a good time watching the game. But really for me, I go back and I look at Jermaine Kearse's touchdown. And part of the reason why, the main reason why I like it so much is he's a guy that grew up in Lakewood, went to high school in Tacoma. He stayed in Washington to go to UW. And then there he was in the Super Bowl catching a touchdown pass and putting his team up to 36-0 at the time, and bounced off, 4 or 5 guys to get in the end zone. And to me, that's just, I think, just as a kid growing up in Washington, I grew up there for a few years, I just have to think that would be such an amazing experience to go from being a local kid to have that moment.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. What Brandon failed to mention, though, is that he was actually in New York for the game. He actually went to the Super Bowl.
That made it a good experience, too. But
yeah, but my favorite memory, not quite as cool because I wasn't there, was one of my other great buddies here, who's also my business partner, is a gigantic Denver Broncos fan. And we've been talking smack all year long. And it was bad. I mean, we travel around the western United States together in a tiny Mazda Protege doing our job at random sawmills. And just that kind of banter going back and forth in that tiny car, leading up to the Super Bowl. We were on the road that week leading up to it. Had gotten pretty intense. And so we ended up watching the game together. And my favorite moment by far was, it was kind of tense, through the first half, even though we were, obviously up big early. But the Percy Harvin touchdown on the kick return, at that point, I had no doubts, none whatsoever. And with the biggest grin I could ever have, I just turned to him and was like, sorry, man. And I wasn't sorry. It was awesome.
Kind of like the Michael Jordan shrug, right?
Yeah, it's just like,
nothing to do.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know exactly how to phrase this when I wrote these questions out for you guys prior, but, I've wondered how my own fandom would change, if at all, whether it would, try to take it to another level or what, when it came to coming off this win. I mean, obviously, it was a huge impact, I think, for the majority of 12's Nation in so many different ways. But in your particular instance, how do you see this win affecting your fandom going forward?
Initially for me, I had to think that it was kind of a loss of our identity. Having been a Seahawks fan for so long and kind of rooting for the underdog that whole time, just kind of used to that feeling.
The lovable loser thing.
Right. Yeah. And I think as 12s we're so used to rooting for the underdog. But the great thing about this team is that it's still full of underdogs. You look at guys like Russell Wilson, guys like Richard Sherman, a lot of these guys who they have that underdog role, and they still have that chip on their shoulder. Doug Baldwin, undrafted, he still has a chip on his shoulder. So really, when you think about it in that respect, nothing's changed.
Yeah, I'd say for me, the biggest change is maybe, and it's been not just since the Super Bowl, but just since, I'd say in the last 2 years maybe even, when you could kind of see the pieces starting to come together between Pete Carroll and John Schneider and the way they were building the team, the pieces they're bringing in, finding guys like a Richard Sherman in the 5th round, Cam Chancellor in the 6th, things like that. The product of all that, and with the Super Bowl win, has been I have a lot more faith in my fandom and in my team. I truly believe in what John Schneider and Pete Carroll are trying to accomplish, from the philosophies to the drafting, everything they do, the way they practice. So I'd say it's faith for me. Mm-hmm.
I think for most of the 12s, that's probably the biggest one, and that is realizing that the guys that are in charge of this bus driving it, they actually know what they're doing, and that second guessing is kind of now lost, hopefully for the most part. And they call it here locally on the radio battered fan syndrome, and it's nice not to be battered anymore. Real quick, I'm going to jump into this because we've got Jason coming up here, but real quickly, if you guys don't mind, I'd love to find out how, especially you guys are involved in the military Seahawkers, overall Seahawkers organization, what are some of the things that you're doing, maybe through the show or not, but to change and work inside the community as members of the 12s?
Well, I know a big part of it is just helping for our particular piece of it is to help get the word out about things that our Seahawkers are doing. We have so many groups all over the world. They continue to sprout up. We have a German Seahawkers club that's going now, and our UK Seahawkers club's been big. And each one, it's kind of up to each individual group to really be a part of find those things in the community where they can be involved and do some special things. But where those exceptional things are happening, those are the things that we want to highlight and show off. And for example, you have Jason Coyner coming up on the show. He's a guy that has gone out and he's trying to rally 12s around this idea of supporting Richard Sherman and kind of his quest to get his teammates on the cover of Madden with him. And that's just one of those really cool things where, not a lot of people are going to put in the time and put in the hours to really do something that they believe in that strongly.
Adam, or have you seen anything different, or is it along the same lines from the standpoint of your perspective?
It's a lot along the same lines. You kind of ask, what the show kind of does for the 12s. And basically, some of the things that have really kind of tickled me is, for example, we have a fair amount of listeners in England, of all places. Right. And basically, they don't have talk radio that they can listen to. They don't get a lot of their information even through the websites and things like that. So it's been really cool to be able to kind of be the voice that they get to listen to and get that kind of in-depth Seahawks talk. And just the connection that we've made with them and some of the listeners and stuff, that's been really special.
Wow. I guess when I get my first international listener, I can start to do a little bit of a jig or something, because I haven't gotten that yet. So that's
it's really cool. We've looking at the stats, I think it's 60 countries or more worldwide, and looking at that, it's a really cool feeling.
Listening to two dork chops from Montana talk Seahawks,
Well, you probably have in common you drink beer and they do too. That's I'm guessing that.
It's a great universal equalizer, absolutely.
Again, I'm really happy that we're going to be able to go through the Hawks 12 tonight. That's what I call my 12 topics. Obviously, 12. It has to be 12, right? I mean, that's the magic number. But before that, we're now going to be joined by Jason Coyner, and I'm real excited here because I know you guys have already talked to him. So, the cat's may be out of the bag, but I'm going to go ahead and bring Jason on now. Jason, are you there?
I am here. How are you doing?
Better than average. Hopefully better when I hear some news from you. I know you've... Go ahead.
It would be nice if EA would, acknowledge what we're doing here, but they seem to be turning us giving us a cold shoulder.
Well, I want to find out from you. I know we've talked on Facebook quite a bit, but look, here's the bottom line. What can we do? What really? This is my big question, because it's kind of been changing this last 24 hours. Is there anything we can do? If you get to talk to this guy, what can you say? What are you going to say to him?
We have two options, and I'll tell you that within the last about 2 hours, we've had signatures pick up. We're over 8,800 already, so we've picked up about 300 signatures. Two things that we really need to happen. If people weren't aware, at the same time, there was another petition that was out by U Stadium, which was two guys that live out in New York City that started a mobile app, and two big Jets fans. They were able to get the attention of Richard Sherman. So we need to get two things. We need to get attention from him to get some kind of support of what we're doing, and we need to get a hold of EA. And by everybody signing that petition, it goes straight to the CEO's mailbox. I've encouraged everybody to start posting on EA's wall. They have a Madden Sports page on Facebook. Let them know that we want the Legion to move on there. And if they're unwilling to at least, do a cover, provide maybe an alternate cover that we can either download or can be purchased that has that, or even a Legion of Boom special edition. So, just because they released a cover today doesn't mean the fight's over with.
To back up a little bit, for some that are listening that haven't maybe been watching this story as it's transpired, I've tried to obviously spread the word as much as possible. But what inspired you to do this? I know Adam and Brandon were just talking about it. Obviously, they've already had a discussion with you. But what really, at the root of this, got you said, look, I'm going to do this, and I think it's going to happen?
I'll tell you, it's been a love for the Seahawks, but when I read the interview on ESPN with Richard Sherman where he wanted to have a Legion of Boom on there, I thought to myself, what an unselfish act that was. And if you saw after the NFC Championship, he was just belittled for a 15-second interview. Yet fans who have, of football, who have, no idea what he does outside of sports would be surprised of all his charity work that he does. And I really thought to myself, he needs to be recognized for all the things that he does that's wonderful compared to a 15-second clip. And, the year that we had and the redemption that we had where fans have, we stuck through them thick and through thin, and we've been ridiculed when they've been bad, and we're hated when they're great, just like they are now. The 12s wanted it. He wanted a challenge. He asked for it, and I stepped up because I thought, you know what? You need to do it as a 12.
So, I know you've been doing this for the last week and working hard at it, but how has this affected your own life? I mean, what's the impact? Hopefully a lot of good in it, but what are some of the things that you've taken out of this that have maybe, made you think differently about how we as fans and players work together in maybe the same direction?
I'll tell you, it's been an eye-opening experience. Not only have I had friends who are not Seahawks fans love the follow-through of what's going on, and now they're paying attention to the team, but just seeing everybody come together and back, if anything, if this does not go through, I think what we come out of this and what I personally come out of this is forging new friendships with people with a passion in a sport and a team that I love, and I think that's what at the forefront of all this has come, because if I had never taken a stand and challenged him, I would not be talking to you now, and I would not be talking to Brandon a couple days earlier, and all these wonderful people with wonderful things to say and support. We may have never crossed paths.
So with all that being said, what more can the audience do? I mean, we're all trying to spread the word, but other than signing that petition and maybe emailing EA Sports, is there anything else we can do to try to help you and all of us with this cause?
I'll tell you, we're kind of at a crossroads right now because that's what we're limited at is we need to get a response from EA, or we need to get some type of public support from Richard Sherman. That's where we're at, because I can spend the next 10 hours sending out emails and contacting media outlets and news companies, and that's only going to get us so far. We need to get a hold of EA. We need to find a middle ground to see if they're willing to work with us to give us what we want, and we need to have a strong vocal voice. We need Richard Sherman to come out and say, hey, you need to back this. This is what I wanted. We're answering. We need to do something about it.
I heard a rumor today that discussion might have taken place, but Richard was not inclined to split the fee. I don't know if you've heard that. I just wanted to see if you had a comment about it.
My comment would be about that is that if it's as important to him to have the Legion of Boom on there, to share that with them, and if it's important to make the fans happy, they will find a way to do it. We've, have more than done our share to get the word out, to let him know that we're fighting for this and that we want this. And if it's going to happen and he wants it to happen, he'll make it happen, and everybody else will. But that's just the way that it is.
And I know that you've also looked into getting pre-orders, 12,000 plus pre-sold interest type orders. I think that's fantastic. Also, I think the idea of maybe regionalizing for different teams in different parts of the country, having special editions, it seems to me like that would be a win-win for EA. But what are some of the methods that you're trying to use in these communications with EA to say, hey, look, there's potentially a bigger apple here for you if you make some small changes to work with the fans?
Yeah, we've submitted ideas, and the 12,000 copy pre-order was, a fellow 12 named Cedric. He is in the Southern California Seahawks chapter. It was a great idea that he came up with. And if you just looked at 12,000 pre-orders, and we would say it's $50 a pop. Normally they're $59 for the games. EA is making $600,000 on it. So we already have people who are willing to set up the sites, willing to work with EA if they want to set it up on their end, to get the pre-orders. When we can get the pre-orders, it's just, we need to get a hold of EA. And right now, they are not paying any attention to what we're trying to, talk to them about and trying to offer them at all.
it's I don't want to say it's the big dog and little puppy scenario. I think it's more of the first time that a big company, a monster like EA Sports, is being introduced to a fan base as ravenous as the 12th man. And yeah. I see a lot of wins here. Even if this doesn't happen, Jason, like I said, I've met you virtually. This is spread out to a number of different individuals. I think there's a lot of wins for all of us in this. And it proves to the world how great a fan the 12th man is.
It is, and it does. And I think it's just proof that it shows you that one person can make a change. And though it may not be the change that we all want, it's going to lead somewhere. And, people seeing us 12s back each other. I mean, if you're 12, you're a family. That's the way that it is. We're close-knit. We're always going to be close-knit. And people are going to see that camaraderie. And, that's going to bring new 12s on board, and that may inspire people to be more passionate about things that they, have a drive for to as well. So, in the end, if the result ends up being not what we want it to be, we're still going to come out on top either way.
I think that's a great way to end this, and I can't agree more. I've said this a number of times, not only on this show, but in any of my social media sites. But the great thing about the 12th man here in Seattle is that we might disagree on every other day of the week, whether it's politics or other teams, college teams, whatever it might be in life. We might disagree on 99% of the conversation topics we might discuss. But on Sundays, we're brothers and we're sisters. And that will always remain here in Seattle as far as I'm concerned.
No, I agree with you, too. And don't think the 12th man doesn't stretch out to the East Coast, because you guys have proof here, and it's in Cleveland, Ohio.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because Johnny Manziel is going to be a mess as far as I'm concerned there in Cleveland. Real quick, before you head out, share all the different ways people can not only follow you but find out more information about the petition. I obviously have that information on my website as well as on my Facebook. I've been sharing. But please, anything else they can do to support you, how can they get in contact with you, Jason?
Yes, so they can look for the Legion of Boom Madden petition. It's on Facebook. It is the official one. You will see links to the change.org petition. It is also links to the article that was on Seahawks.com, mynorthwest.com. It's also on CBS Sports, NBC Post Talk Football. So there's tons of media outlets. You can also look for Jason Coiner on Facebook.com. I'm going to be the only Seahawks fan in Cleveland, Ohio. So there is plenty of ways. I will be out there pushing it. People, if you want to find me, you'll be able to.
Jason, I really appreciate you coming on just for a few minutes, and we will get you. I want to get you back on for a little longer so we can talk football as opposed to just this. But thanks again, my friend, and we will be in touch, and we will hopefully make a difference. We'll make a difference regardless, but hopefully we can get something done here and make this happen, all right?
I do. And, hey, thank you so much for having me on and being so welcoming to what I'm trying to do. And I really appreciate every avenue and opportunity that you have, provided for me to get this word out. I really appreciate it.
You bet, Jason. Like I said, we're brothers, all right?
Yes, we are, man.
Keep Go Hawks, all right?
Go Hawks.
All right, that was Jason Coiner, everybody, and I'm glad we were able to bring him on. Hey, Brandan and Adam, I'd really like to get your impressions of what we just talked about. And again, if there's, if you guys have any ideas on what else we can try to do to help Jason out.
I think part of it is just getting the word out and like you said, being active. I know it was definitely a very different tone, the interview, from what we had with him a few days ago. Definitely with the actual announcement of the cover coming out, it's a little disappointing. But I really like the idea of a special edition. Having it regionalized for 12s and I pulled out for that.
Well, it seems silly that EA wouldn't do that. I mean, give me a break. They'd be raking in. I mean, how many guys are going to buy the one copy with Richard Sherman on it? And also the copy, if there's a special edition, I got to have that too, right? It's going to happen.
There's people out there.
Yeah. They, why not make all the money? That's my question.
I've actually wondered that. Right when I saw this whole thing, I'm like, wait a minute. Why isn't like there a, the Cowboys edition? Cleveland Browns, you got put Johnny Manziel on the cover. I mean, there's all these different things you could do for different teams. We're not just the only team that has quote-unquote nicknames for our defensive or position units or anything like that. it just seems weird to me that EA wouldn't try to go, well, God, that's the greatest marketing concept of all time. We could make a killing selling special editions out there.
Yeah, they need to make it happen. Bottom line.
Oh, let's do this. Well, we're going to keep working on it. Well, we got a lot to talk about still, so we're going to jump back. We skipped over one of our topics, and again, thanks guys for letting me take care of that interview and knock it out. Jason, I think, did a fantastic job, and he's getting a lot of publicity. I mean, he's been on a lot of numbers, and he talked to Mike Floria today from Pro Football Talk.
That's crazy.
That's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I've never talked to Mike Floria.
No. And well, it just goes to show you how much work Jason is putting behind this.
Yeah,
he's putting in time, and he's really passionate about it, which is really cool.
Yeah, and he speaks well about the topic, dude, and you can hear the passion when he's speaking about it. So I think it's gone a long way for him.
That's awesome. I agree. Well, let's back up here. We're gonna go to topic number 2 this evening. Is the Seahawks off season. And I call this win-play show. And, again, I don't think there's been a lot of losses this offseason, even though we lost some personnel in free agency. But what I'd like to do is find out from each of you the moves this offseason. What are the 3 biggest, good, bad, indifferent, that you think will directly impact the Seahawks' success in 2014? Starting with Brandon.
All right, for me, the biggest thing is with signing Earl Thomas in the offseason. He's such a big part of that defense, and he kind of said it that the Seahawks are able to do what they can do on defense because of him. And whether that shows may not be the most humblest of his moments, but I think he really believes that, and I think he is that important to the defense. So signing him was really important. I think the toughest move has been losing Golden Tate, because not only is he that strong punt returner, but I mean, there's games that we would not have won last year if Golden Tate were not on the team. How many yards did he catch against the Rams? And we barely got out of that game.
Yeah, pretty much all of the yards.
Pretty much all of the yards.
Yeah.
And
pretty much all of them.
Tampa Bay,
80.
I think it was right?
Yeah.
All 80. And then I think it was the Tampa Bay game where he had that huge punt return that set up the game winner. So he was a really big part of this team, and he's really going to be missed. So as far as the indifferent part, I guess I see that as something that could maybe go one way or maybe go the other way. And Adam and I talked about this a little bit on our last show, with the idea of Earl Thomas returning punts. And I think that this is one of the things, with him potentially having a big role on special teams, it could be something that really changes the way the team looks. And I think he has the potential to be better than Golden Tate on the punt return. And I really like the idea of him getting the ball every game.
Yeah, we did talk about that on the last show, and the idea of Earl returning punts terrifies me. Like, I want our $1 billion man to be playing safety, because that's what he does better than anybody else.
And that's why I'm a little bit indifferent on it.
Yeah, there's other two things. But my best move to this point, or I guess I want to start at the bottom, because I like to end on kind of a higher note. But I think our biggest loss was Rick Bryant. And, I know his production has flipped a little bit, but he was one of those real emotional leaders in the locker room. He's been one of those guys that's been around forever. He's been there, prior to the Pete Carroll regime, and, was one of the guys that really helped turn it around. And, yes, we've done some things with the defensive line, through the draft and that sort of thing, which, Greg Scruggs coming along, and, Jordan Hill and Jesse Williams and all those guys. But that's a pretty big loss to me, and big shoes to fill as a defensive leader. As far as indifference, this is where I disagree with Brandon. Indifference to me is Golden Tate. He had a nice season, no doubt, but you can't tell me that I don't think that Paul Richardson can't have that season, or that Percy Harvin can't have that season, or that Kevin Norwood could even have that season, or maybe Doug Baldwin, who's looked awesome in camp, has that same type of season. So I think the replacement for Golden Tate is there, and I think we're going to offset that, and I really don't see a big drop-off because of that. As far as the best move, I kind of echo Brandon a little bit. He mentioned Earl Thomas signing. I'd say signing of both Thomas and Sherman, just getting those key guys locked up, the big names that we need to continue this forward and become an actual dynasty.
If I would have known I could take 2 moves, I would have picked both of them. But I went with one.
You went with one. I'm more inclusive.
Now, speaking of Earl Thomas potentially returning punts, I actually remember those flashbacks of 2012 and when he got that pick in Buffalo, well, actually in Toronto, and he went across the field 3 times, I think, and scored brought the ball back on that pick for a touchdown, like 60 yards. He is extremely talented, obviously, in many different ways, but his speed and his ability to catch the ball and juke people off, I mean, it's pretty fantastic. Golden had that ability, but he seemed to never really get hit. He got hit a couple times, especially against the Rams, because I think they were trying to kill him. But the point is that whoever falls into that role, they have big shoes to fill. And I do agree with you, Brandon, there that is for me, most questionable place on this roster. Not the offensive line, believe it or not, but it's that key role of who returns punts, because inevitably that was a huge part of our overall production last year in so many crucial ways. Also, just kind of, I don't want to cheat here, but the big move for me, guys, was signing not only Earl, but Michael Bennett and Richard Sherman. Both getting those 2 extensions, but getting Bennett back here as a free agent, I think was humongous. Secondly, I actually think, and I kind of, again, cheating here because I'm using these all as positives. I'm not indifferent or bad about any of these. I think Paul Richardson's going to be an absolute game changer. I am visualizing, having Percy in the slot on one side, having Paul on the outside on the other of the formation, and what the pressure that's going to put on the safeties and how they usually try to do a cover 2 against us, where they're going to keep those 2 safeties deep and then try to play a zone underneath. Well, what happens when you got those 2 guys just blazing the seams down the road and nobody can stay with them? I just see Paul Richardson being an absolute game changer. Lastly, I really am happy to see these red shirts, this quote-unquote red shirt terminology that's now being brought into pro football. But with all those guys, Therald Simon, Jesse Williams, Greg Scruggs, even though he's technically not a red shirt really, and even Corey Toomer is kind of in that same ballpark. But all these guys, apparently, based on everything we've heard and what Pete Carroll's talked about, these guys just look awesome right now. And I'm not as down about losing Red from a physical standpoint. I'm down because I think of, again, agreeing with you, Adam, about the leadership aspects he brings to the table. I think, though, Earl has become a louder voice. I think Russell has become a louder voice. And I think that need for older leadership, either Michael Robinson, Chris Clemens, or Red Bryant, I think that's been kind of consumed by those guys. And I think we're going to be okay. But ultimately speaking, I'm really excited about these redshirt guys because I think that they're going to make a big impact this year. Moving on, and I think this is kind of an interesting question because I've wondered it myself for a while, but I've never really said it out loud, and that is, are we better at finding defensive players as opposed to offensive players? I mean, obviously we know Pete Carroll's wheelhouse is defense, but we see the talent and how deep we are defensively, and then you look at offense and we're like, are we even close to there? Like, how good are they? Are they even? Really, are we finding just guys that are okay and it's just all about the defense? I want to get your impressions on that, starting with Brandon.
I think if you had to pick, defense seems like the obvious choice just because when you have a team that has the number one defense, obviously those are all young guys and players that the team has picked up. And I don't even know if it's a question of finding the players as much as developing them. Maybe they're just better at developing those players on offense or on defense. It really doesn't matter. I think, to me, what's important is that John Schneider and Pete Carroll, they've found this kind of competitive advantage in picking players that other people would avoid just because of certain characteristics, physical traits like their body size isn't the right body size for linebacker, or a guy is too short to play quarterback, or too tall to play cornerback. And they'll take these guys, and those physical traits don't scare them because they do other things really, really well.
Yeah, I think for me, as far as being able to pick defensive players better or offensive players better, that kind of question, I think they're probably equal at both, only because Pete Carroll is a defensive guy, as you just mentioned, and you can see his imprint all over that defense. Now, you look at John Schneider's background coming from Green Bay. That's a very offensive-centric philosophy. I mean, they're always after quarterbacks in Green Bay. I mean, think of all the quarterbacks that came out of this thing. So I think the difference that you've seen to this point is the fact that defense wins championships, and so when you're going to start building a team from scratch like they did when they took over from Mora, this is what Pete Carroll wanted to do. He wanted to play tough, rugged football. They started on defense first. So I think we had a head start in developing the defense and using our assets to make that better. And now that we have that rock solid, I think you're starting to see that shift a little bit. I mean, look at the last two drafts with Kristen Michael being our top pick from last year's draft, Paul Richardson being the top pick from this year's draft, Justin Britt on the offensive line, things like that. I think you're going to see us start to stockpile more talent on the offensive side of the ball than we did previously.
That's a good point about John Schneider and he kind of being maybe the offensive side of this because you think about exactly what he did with Russell Wilson. I mean, he was the guy that found Russell in tape, and he's the guy that was in love with him and sold him to Pete Carroll. And maybe that is how this is kind of working. We started with defense strong, and now we're coming on hard on the offensive side, and I can definitely see that happening. Moving on to, I think, probably the biggest question on everyone's mind right now, which is what's going on with Marshawn Lynch and what his future is here. I guess the first question I have, I'll start with Brandon here, is Marshawn Lynch worth any more money that the Seahawks might pay him?
Well, to start with, he's the number 5 paid back in the league, so he's getting paid pretty well. But I could also argue that he's better than number 5 in terms of the 5 best running backs in the league. I put him at 2 or 3 maybe.
He's top 5 now, but when he signed the contract, you know what I mean? Like there's other guys that just escalated because they're solid.
So I have to think that there's got to be a win-win situation here, a way that he can. I see where he's coming from because he looks at that last year and he thinks that how his contract is structured right now. He's looking at that 4th year as something that's probably not going to happen. He'll become a cap casualty. And so if there's a way that the Seahawks can find a way to restructure it, either incentivize it, obviously. I know I heard Brock and Danny on the radio the other day and talking about Michael Robinson, some of his comments about Marshawn Lynch. And Lynch isn't exactly the guy that you want to give play incentives for. You saw him at the goal line when he's not getting his touches. He doesn't get real happy. But maybe some team incentives. There's got to, I'm not a real contract guy, so I don't know, but there has to be a way that both sides can come together and make this work.
Well, here's the problem for Marshawn. He has no leverage. He has none. There's nothing that he can do here. He's going to start sitting out camp. He's going to stop getting them checks. And that's what it's all about. I mean, he wants to get paid. He's not going to leave however millions of dollars that are going to be on the table for this next season. Let's not even think about that 4th year. It's about that action, boss, and that action is next year. And he doesn't have any leverage. The team can't afford to invest more in him because we got to lock up Russell next, and we've already locked up Sherman and Earl and Cam, and there's only so many contracts that can go around. And honestly, with a running back approaching the age of 30, I mean, he puts his imprints all over his team. I'm not saying he's not important, but approaching the age of 30, having no leverage, having 2 years left on your deal, it doesn't look good. They're not going to pay him a dime more than they need to.
At the same time, though, you don't want a guy like that to shut down. And to me, you see the way he acted at Media Day and said that you're going to do this, and you kind of saw him shut down a little bit. You don't want that to happen during the season. He is about that action, but at the same time, it could also backfire on the team a little bit.
Well, he did provide, in my opinion, the best part of Media Day in that interview with Deion Sanders.
Yeah, it was.
Which, again, that's the best 90 seconds of, it's given us how many one-liners just tonight. So,
right.
Look, pardon the pun, but I think Marshawn Lynch is the linchpin of our offense. And I say that because the violence he runs with. I honestly don't know how he stayed as healthy as he has. I mean, he's been banged up here and there, but nothing off the charts. I mean, the back issue has probably been the biggest, but he still has – think about the weight he carries on each one of his literally carries. I mean, he will put multiple people on his back and run for another yard or two. And I haven't seen Robert Turbin do that yet, and I haven't seen, not that Christine Michael can't seen him do it yet. I feel like the biggest loss that we might have in not having a Marshawn Lynch, believe it or not, is in the pass blocking. I think he's a tremendous pass blocking running back. And we know how important it is in our system, especially last year, with having so many injuries on the offensive line. I got to tell you, Marshawn Lynch saved Russell Wilson many times. And again, not saying Robert Turbin can't do it and not saying that Christine Michael can't pick it up, but I feel like that was his biggest issue last year, and maybe getting time. I just feel like this year we need Marshawn Lynch. I just feel like those younger guys need another year underneath the system. But going forward, I think it's something we can live with, but it's going to change the identity of this team. So it does worry me. Now, ultimately speaking, we talked about maybe possibly how does this get resolved. I've looked into the numbers. We've got about $7 million in cap space. They're looking to try to get KJ Wright locked up potentially before training camp. It's going to be about $1 million or $1.5 million more dollars, in my opinion, to get him locked up and some type of guaranteed. It's going to come down to just guaranteed money. He just wants to get paid another $1 million or $2 million and call it a day. Do you guys think that's all it's going to be, or do you think it's going to require? Do you think ultimately this is the last time we're never going to see Marshawn Lynch run the ball again for the Seahawks?
Oh, I think he'll be back. And the problem is neither of us really, we don't know what his position is because he hasn't really come out and said anything. So the difference between what he might want might be very little. And that's why I think that in some cases we might be overthinking it a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think just overthinking it as a whole, I mean, he's under contract for this next year, and he's not going to leave that money on the table. He will play. I mean, whether they give him more money or not, he is going to play. Now, you made a decent point about his motivation at that point. And, Paul, you had mentioned his impact on the team. You hear Pete Carroll talk about it. The toughness of a football team and playing tough, it starts with the defense, and then they close that circle by a violent running game. And that's what Marshawn brings. Now, they didn't draft Christine Michael, and they didn't draft Robert Turbin to ride the pine for the next 4 years either. And there's going to be a time when the team's identity isn't going to be Marshawn Lynch. It's going to be Russell Wilson. So there's a point we're going to move on from Marshawn. I don't think it's this year. I think he's under contract. I think he'll play. And I don't think the Seahawks are going to budge an inch. I wouldn't.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting. There's a little bit of wiggle room, but how they design it, the good news here, and we've all agreed on this, we got the right guys at the top of this thing running it and making those decisions. And whatever they end up rolling with, I'll roll with just fine. And ultimately, whether or not Marshawn's running the ball next year or not, which I agree, he's going to run the ball. This guy's not going to let money just slip out of his fingertips. That's why he showed up last week. It might be an unhappy beast, but he might be better unhappy. My God in heaven, could you imagine that guy mad running the ball? Okay. Let's move on to the newbies, these impact players potentially out of this rookie class that we have acquired, even and some of these free agents too. Kevin Williams is a guy I'm very high on. I'd like to get your opinion on who on offense, defense, and special teams, or let's just call it like the outlier, whether it is on special teams or not. Who's the one guy of the newbies, in your opinion, Brandon, that you think can have a big impact this year?
Well, since you guys got to cheat earlier, I'm cheating on this one, and I'm picking Sidney Wright. Because technically he's technically a free agent. We cut him. We re-signed him. And, he's a guy, he's 27 right now, he'll be 28 when he starts the season, so he's still relatively young, and he hasn't really had a full season. I think he's had one full season with the team, and so that's why I think I'm going to go with him, because this could be his best year with the team. I think he has that potential. Get him healthy, get him in there, and there's a lot of room for him to catch touchdowns.
Boy, I'd be awful surprised if Sidney Wright even makes the roster. With all these young receivers and everything, I just think that's going to be a difficulty for him, let alone make an impact. And the whole reason that I disagree with you the most is the same reason you brought up Ford. He's only played one healthy season the whole time he's been here. He can't stay on the field. And, he's going to Germany to get magic voodoo knee medicine done. And that's
Swiss Alps.
The beginning of the end. Yeah, exactly. Look at Kobe Bryant. I mean, once he started doing that, it was over. So I think that'd be tough for him. But I think as far as the newcomers, I think as far as offense, Paul Richardson, I'm with you on that, Paul. I think he's going to be electric. Just his speed, the way he carried a terrible Colorado Buffalo team, I think that says a lot about his game. And being one full year removed from major knee surgery, he's had a whole year to get healthy. He played that whole season, didn't have any tweaks or setbacks, catches the ball extremely well. And you pair him with Murphy, just like you were saying, Paul, and good Lord, look out, folks.
I mentioned Kevin Williams already. I think he's going to be a impactful player, not only on defense, but kind of bridging the gap on the defensive line between our rush stopping front four and our pass rushing, specialist front four. But Paul Richardson I have obviously mentioned, but a guy that this is where it comes back to the Sidney Rice concept or idea that you brought up, Brandon. I have a hard time believing he's going to be on the active roster when we do the Ultimate 53, and the reason is I think he's going to actually be on the PUP list for 6 weeks. I think he's going to end up being on the PUP till at least week 6. He may end up being cut after that point, but I think that's kind of their game plan, to use him in reserve if he's able to, one, come back from the injury, come back to his old self, and that will give them time to kind of wiggle with some of these new guys, obviously Kevin Norwood being a guy that they expect to make this roster right now. Paul Richardson. I mean, you really add it up, you get into 6 guys pretty quick, and Sidney Rice isn't on that list. But then you leave other places. That's not including Ricardo Lockett. Now, we all can, I think, admit Ricardo Lockett was a huge impact on special teams last year. His speed and his ability to decapitate the guy who caught the ball. I mean, just your thoughts. I want to hear. Do you guys think? I think Ricardo Lockett's an absolute lock to make this roster. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, LaMichael James is still having nightmares from having his head taken off by Ricardo Lockett. And he had a couple big blows in that game. He is that guy, right, that we've talked about for a couple seasons now, where he's really fast and he's got great hands, he's going to break out. He never did on offense, but boy, howdy, on special teams, I love his physicality and his mindset. He's been a great cover guy. And I think when you're looking at a receiver filling in that last 5th or 6th receiving spot, he has to play special teams. And that's why I think maybe a Ricardo Lockett gets a nod over Sidney Rice.
And I guess that's where I see Sidney Rice's spot really hinging upon, because I don't know if I see Ricardo Lockett making this team, because there are so many talented, fast, new players that are going to be gunning for a spot on this team. And, a guy like Kevin Pierre-Louis, the linebackers are stacked.
Yeah, he could be.
And he's a really fast guy, so he's going to be a guy who is going to have an impact on special teams. And so, maybe you see him kind of take on that role, or maybe there's another guy you see take on that role. Ricardo Lockett, to me, yeah, I've been waiting, and I haven't been seeing the production out of him on
offense. So you're thinking he's going to get cut and become Colin Kaepernick's roommate again, maybe?
Maybe.
Bodyguard or middleman, one of the two.
Yeah.
Of the rookies, just real quick, 15 seconds each. What's the one rookie, not just necessarily free agent pickups or whatnot, but what's that one rookie that you are just excited to see on the field?
Yeah, it's Kevin Pierre-Louis for me. He's the fastest linebacker in the draft. You talk about competitive advantage. This is a guy that analysts say was too small to play linebacker. And that's what the Seahawks love. They like these guys with a chip on their shoulder, and I think he's going to be one of those guys that proves those analysts wrong.
Yeah, for me, I think it's got to be Cassius Marsh, the guy out of UCLA, the defensive end. He reminds me a lot of Jared Allen. I hate the term high motor guy, but that's really what he is. He reminds me a lot of Jared Allen in that respect. I think he's going to be a madman coming off the edge.
And I agree with you. So you win the prize tonight. Cassius
Awesome.
Marsh. All right, moving on. Let's go O-line now. I got gold stars, you guys, up there on the board, big board in my house. Let's talk O-line, and this is probably the biggest question for most folks going into this. I read, obviously, field goals every day. Danny Kelly did a big synopsis for SB Nation about all the best O-lines in the NFL. I heard him talk about how good they were going to be, and then when he wrote the piece, we weren't even on the list in the top 10. Let's just get this all down. Who do you guys see being the starting 5 next season on the offensive line?
Well, I think for me, just having a starting five that can play together for more than 3 straight games is going to be what's going to be key. Yeah, it'll be a little bit helpful if that could happen this year. Listening to what Tom Cable has said, obviously Mac and Okung, they have their spots pretty much solidified, right? And then listening to Tom Cable, he makes it sound like it's not even a competition at each guard spot. It's which guard between James Carpenter and J.R. Sweezy is going to be the better guard. So really that only leaves the right tackle position that's open. And I'm excited to see what happens. It could be Justin Britt. It could be I think it'll probably be one of those cases where Justin Britt with a young guy straight out. You listen to Tom Cable and he says that this guy he doesn't make the same mistake twice. And when you start hearing that from the coaches, they found a player that they really like.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned the order of the offensive line, just like you said. Unger, Okung, obviously. Carpenter and Sweezy are apparently settled. And just listening to Tom Cable talk about Sweezy here just recently, about he believes he's one of the best young guards in the league that nobody's talking about. Maybe he'll be even a little better this next year. But right tackle is obviously where the competition's at. It's coming down to seemingly Bowie or Britt. Kind of just by judging by the team, they always try to get those younger guys on the field, even though Bowie's not exactly old.
Yeah.
But, Britt, super smart guy. Apparently fundamentally really sound, rarely is off balance, is quick on his feet, very mature, and has a nasty streak. I think it's going to be Britt at right tackle when it's all said and done.
I think that's going to be the interesting battle. And what I see in the draft pick of Justin Britt is he kind of looks like Bruno Giacomini. And I'm not saying, in the face, but his body type and size still coming out of college. It made me think, because I played offensive line in college, guys. I was an offensive center. But it reminded me of, okay, that's what Tom Cable's looking for. He's looking for guys like this. So maybe he's trying to, first of all, get James Carpenter, and it looks like they have, into some type of game shape where he can be mobile. And that, again, leads me to this overall theory that, they're looking for highly athletic, big, beastie guys, tall, obviously carry the weight, and who isn't, obviously, but they're looking for these types of guys, and if you're not in that, and you're not versatile, and that's obviously another area they need these guys to play multiple positions. Bailey, obviously, we've seen what he's done. Bowie, you start to see these are the guys that are going to make this team and be on this roster, and I actually really think that our offensive line is going to be actually better this year, not just because they're healthier, getting Okung's turf toe finally fixed with surgery, and I know that from experience. That's not fun to have. But ultimately speaking, I think Cable, after having a couple of years to kind of put these guys together, I think we're going to be better this year than we were last year. And that's kind of scary to think that we could have, because anything based on what we saw last year is going to be better. But these guys could be very good, I think, and especially for years to come because they are so young. The Seahawk recipe for success. I read an article this week over on 12th Man Rising, and it made me kind of start to get into this idea of, Pete has these mission statements, these mantras, always compete. It's all about the ball. What ingredients do you see as being keys for this team to repeat and win a Super Bowl title? Brandon?
Well, they're more physical than any other team. Really, the 49ers are probably one of the only teams that could really match the Seahawks' toughness. And almost every other team in the NFC West is built that way. And so that's when I look at other teams across in the NFC and in the AFC, really within our own division, that's the only – there aren't any other teams that scare me.
Yeah, I think maybe the biggest obstacle to repeating and what this team needs to do is honestly maybe just a little bit of health luck. I mean, we stayed relatively healthy last year, minus the offensive line struggles, and thank gosh Russell Wilson's at Houdini and made that work. But I think really you talk about the NFC being that tough, and it really is. It feels a little bit of a crapshoot to be able to get to that level, and you just have to catch a couple breaks. I think they set themselves up as perfectly as they can as far as the talent level, going into this season with the guys that they have coming in. It's just going to be, catching a break or two and winning those division games. And that's going to be awful tough.
I watched the town hall. I'm sure you guys probably did as well online. And Pete had this kind of 10-minute call it introduction to the way the Seahawks play football to those in attendance, where he talked about it's all about the ball. And I last year really looked at the toxic stat number, which is essentially the ratios of turnovers to big plays. And I see the key ingredients to this team being in those two numbers. One, causing turnovers and not allowing them from our own offense. And then two, the ability to get big plays. People forget that we were only second in the NFL, the entire NFL, in big plays, and that's defined as anything over 20 yards of one play. We were only second to the Eagles, and they had 48. We had 46, and we were number one in turnovers. I mean, it's really amazing to think that on both sides of the ball, we really were that good. And most teams, they maybe only had one area where, like the Broncos, they had like a negative. I think they were they were a total zero toxic stat when you look at those two ratios. We were plus 66, and the Denver Broncos were 0. I mean, think about that. Is there another factor that either of you or any comment you'd like to make about that, Brandon?
Well, I think, like you pointed out, turnovers is a huge point. And going back to the town hall, I think Coach Carroll pointed out that the Seahawks had only lost, I think, 2 games when they hadn't won the turnover ratio. So that's really important for this team. And I think other than those types of things, I think the big play, this is going to be the year where you see whether or not how many big plays the Seahawks made were a design of their system, or whether it was just one of those things that happened to
lightning in a bottle.
Lightning in a bottle, or if that's something that other teams will be able to focus on now and take that away.
Yeah, I actually feel real comfortable with our big play ability just because of all those stats that you mentioned there, Paul. Yeah, we are explosive on offense, but what we weren't last year on offense was consistent. So if a little bit more offensive consistency, you'll convert a few more of those third downs and keeping your defense off the field and scoring a few more points and just being more consistent on that side of the ball, I think that would make a world of difference in us repeating.
Third downs and red zone, that's on top of the last 2 stats. I think those are the 2 big ones to follow this next season, because we really weren't that good except for spots. And like you said, Adam, consistency is going to be vital. Good, better, and best. Offensive, defense, and special teams. What I want to know from you guys is, what are the 3 most important players on offense, 1, defense, 2, and special teams, 3?
Offense, Russell Wilson. Even though we talked about the importance of Marshawn Lynch, this is Russell Wilson's team to take over. And then on defense, I already talked about Earl Thomas. To me, he's the key. And even being, Oklahoma Sooner, it's really hard for me to say that with Earl being a Texas guy. But and then special teams, Percy Harvin. Having him for a full season on special teams is really exciting. It's just that idea that he could be healthy the whole season.
Yeah. Well, on offense, my 3 guys would be Russell, obviously. Marshawn, which we talked about earlier, and what he means to this team. And then I'd say Bill Baldwin, because he was just so clutch for us last year. And if he can somehow, duplicate that coming into this next season, I think we'll be as right as rain. As far as defense goes, my 3 guys would be Earl, Sherman, and surprisingly for me, after I thought about this, was Brandon Mebane up front, the defensive tackle, because it all starts in the trenches. And he's been the guy that's been there, again, another guy that's been there since before the Carroll era. Unbelievably consistent, horribly underrated, a good pass rusher, collapsed the pocket up the middle, stout against the run, never injured. Brandon Mebane would be my 3rd guy on defense. On special teams, got to be Steve Money Hauschka, because he's just ka-ching money at all times. Jeremy Lane, the gunner, is another big one. He made a lot of huge plays, limited people's punt returns and that sort of thing. And then Percy. I mean, he's going to be electric.
Guys, I kind of just want to do a little tangent here, because I think we've got some scary kismet going here. And the reason I say that is my lists were basically identical to Adam's, and I'm also a Sooner, Brandon. So however that works out, I don't know. Yeah, Boomer, Sooner. That's right. It's been tough to accept Earl into this family, I got to tell you. But overall, I guess I'll just agree with you, Adam, because mine is essentially the same. Actually, I got Marshawn Lynch ahead of Russell, believe it or not, on offense, and I included B-Wags on the defensive side. I think Bobby Wagner's an underestimated and vital piece to the core of that middle of the defense. You think about some of the athleticism that he's shown in making plays, either running down Colin Kaepernick in that NFC championship game, right in that first drive where he stopped him from getting the first down. Bobby Wagner's a stud. And again, how they find these guys, it's just amazing to me. All right, let's move on because we are kind of winding down on time. And just so you guys know, if we go a little over, first of all, thank you for being with me. But if we go a little over, it'll be available on the podcast side, so it might cut off on the live for anyone that's listening. But let's just keep moving here. The fight that happened last week, I just want to get your guys' impressions real quick on is it a big deal? Ultimately speaking, do you see this team having issues internally in any way, shape, or form with personalities?
Nobody got hurt, so no big deal for me. I think the big thing is that it's good to see the team has a little bit of a fighting spirit to them. They can be intense, and some of these things are going to happen when they have that intensity. And I think the team also handled it the right way. So I'm indifferent to it.
For me, it's actually the antithesis of a big deal because I think about relationships with good buddies of mine when we're competing. And it can be just a beer speed, the crazy yard game. And that can almost come to fisticuffs. Guys get a little heated or whatever. Mm-hmm. Do I have an actual problem with that other person? No. But did we get a little heated one day and our chili run a little hot? Yeah, but it's all going to buff out.
I agree. I think ultimately speaking, it shows that these guys are already competing at an extremely high level in mini camp with no pads on. Again, as long as they stay healthy, I think these types of interactions are actually okay. Looking at the, you brought up one of the questions you guys had mentioned to me about discussing this week on the show was this mobile quarterback who's kind of the pioneer of this. And Michael Vick coming out and making the statement that he believes kind of he's laid the groundwork for players like Russell Wilson and so forth. I feel personally that he's left out a lot of guys before him that I think were more important and actually were more versatile as running and throwing quarterbacks. Brandon, what's your perspective on his statement? And is Michael Vick, is he better than Jamel Holloway? Because in my opinion, he's not.
Well, I don't want to take anything away from Michael Vick because when he came out, he was an incredible player. But his success didn't have anything to do with what happened with Russell Wilson or some of these other mobile quarterbacks today and what they've been able to achieve. I just don't – the thing that surprises me the most about Michael Vick is that he had two guys that came right before him that paved the way for him, I think, and that was Steve McNair and Donovan McNabb. And those two guys, they were very mobile and very good quarterbacks.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more about those names that you brought up that came before Vick. Again, Vick was a tremendous athlete, but he was never a great thrower of the football. Yeah, he had a hose, and he could throw it on a rope. But accuracy's always been an issue with him. I think he's only been in the 60% completion range like once or twice in his career. So, I don't know that he was really a trendsetter, but the two names that you mentioned, McNabb and McNair, those are good ones. Also, let's think back, go in the Wayback Machine and think about a few more here. Steve Young. I know he's a Niner, but boy, howdy. I mean, he was a great scrambling quarterback and had what, up until Aaron Rodgers broke it this year recently, the highest quarterback rating for a season ever. How about Frank Hartington? How about Randall Cunningham? I mean, these are guys that have been doing it way before Michael Vick, had any idea.
How about Jim Zorn?
There you go.
Whoa.
He was very mobile and very good quarterback.
Well, I bring up Jamel Holloway, by the way, there, Brandon, because he was the great option quarterback in the 80s for our Oklahoma Sooners, one of my favorite quarterbacks ever, who was not able to throw worth a damn, but it didn't matter in the wishbone. But in my opinion, guys, Randall Cunningham is the one that's really the trendsetter here. I think he's the one that's most like what you see in these new age quarterbacks with not only the ability to throw. People forget Randall Cunningham had a lot of touch and he had a cannon. But two, his speed, his ability to juke and drive and actually run like a running back. He was not. I think they ran a little bit of read option there, but again, you had your head coach was Buddy Ryan. He was too worried about the defense. You think about, he probably thought zero about the offense. I mean, he probably actually stood in front of his offensive coordinator in their game planning because he was trying to work defense into things. I can't imagine that he helped in Randall Cunningham's progression as a quarterback.
I think that's an excellent point because look at Randall Cunningham when he went to an offensive-minded coach staying like Denny Green. Didn't they have the highest scoring offense in NFL history the year they got bounced in the NFC Championship game by the Falcons? He had a great touch. He could have had a much more prolific career throwing the ball, just like you said, if he hadn't have been, burdened offensively by Buddy Ryan. I mean, Buddy Ryan was probably getting in a fist fight with the offensive coordinator for all I know. Kevin Gilbride.
That was when they were at the Oilers,
that
right?
Was with the Oilers, yeah. Yeah, it was Kevin Gilbride, I think, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. And he just got fired by the Giants, if I'm correct, right? I think so. All right, moving on. Terrell Pryor apparently can't catch. This is news to me that a quarterback who's got the athletic skills that Terrell Pryor does, he can't catch, and that's like that's the reason, his reasoning why he can't even think or comprehend or look at maybe playing another position. What's the deal here? I mean, first of all, I don't think Terrell Pryor is going to make this team now. I think this was his death knell, personally, by him coming out and saying a comment like this. But, I mean, do you see him being on this roster, or is his career basically over? Brandon?
I think he has the athletic talent and ability to be that third guy. I don't think it's necessarily going to be the nail in his coffin. But I think when he says he can't catch, I think what I hear is that he doesn't want to catch. And that's fine.
I think I'm not really surprised by the comment because look at how many tall, fast, high-jumping guys play cornerback and not wide receiver. And there's a reason, because they can't catch. That's the entire reason. So there's a lot of athletic guys that can't catch. So I think that there might be some truth there. I think maybe he's being honest. Now, as far as making the team, they haven't carried three quarterbacks. Maybe they do. It just has, I don't know. I guess a lot depends on how the final roster shakes out in those last few spots, but he's certainly on the bubble.
I guess if I was him, I would be more open-minded to change, and if he can't make it as a quarterback, maybe looking at other positions. I mean, I go back in time, a couple of names that came to my mind were Irving Fryer. You know, he was a quarterback at Nebraska, and they won a national championship. Steve Sewell, a former Sooner. Both guys that played different positions and were open to change when they came to the NFL. We could bring up Cordell Stewart, Slash, and how he kind of moved around. But I see that Terrell Pryor, who's a freak athlete, absolute freak athlete, just kind of closing his mind to the whole idea. If I was him, I'd be like, I'll do whatever you guys tell me to do. If you guys want me to play quarterback, I'll be a quarterback. If you guys want me to play D-tackle, I'll play D-tackle. I wouldn't be necessarily happy about it, but I would do it. But anyways, it just seems crazy to me that he comes out and says stuff like that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the last topic this evening. And believe it or not, I've got some intro music here, boys. So let's hold on and listen.
All the single ladies, 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 all the single ladies. Now put your hands up in the club, just cross up. I'm doing my own little thing. You decided to dip, and now you want a trip, 'cause another brother noticed me. I'm up on him, he up on me. Don't pay him any attention. Just try my attention. Take 3 good years, you can't be mad at me. 'Cause if you like it, then you should've put a ring on it. If you like it, then you should've put a ring on it. Don't deny what you see, that she want it. If you like it, then you should've put a ring on it.
Well, Paul Allen decided to put the ring on it this last week, and Paul Allen, the owner of the Seahawks, handed out the Super Bowl rings. Hopefully you guys liked the joke there, but anyways.
I don't know, Paul. If I would have known that I would have gotten to see Adam's death, to be Beyonce tonight.
I was even doing like the hand flip thing like she did. Like, yeah.
I don't know if I would agree to come on the show. If I would have known, I would have had to watch that.
I don't make that look as good as Beyonce?
No.
Okay.
Well, real quick, I'd love to get your guys' impressions and thoughts of, one, the design, the look of the ring, and two, just the information that went around from the celebration that took place there at the EMP in downtown Seattle.
You know, I want one. I know I won't get one. But I really like how they incorporated the 12th man. They have a couple 12 flags on either side, on different parts of the ring, so that's really cool. I love the what's next inscription on the inside because I think that's really the theme this year going forward.
Yeah, I thought they were actually very well done. A lot of times you see them and they kind of appear gaudy. Now, there's a lot of stones on it, obviously, but it had a real clean look to it. I really like the sapphires around the edge. I thought that was pretty sweet. The score being engraved on the inside, that was pretty awesome as well. So I thought they did a really classy job, and you didn't expect anything less from Paul Allen. I mean, he's not going to skimp on that part of it.
I got to tell you, the symbolism in every part of that ring. I mean, from I know that Brian Nemhauser, Hawk Blogger, pointed out, just around the edges, you could see that it's the top of the clinks, the CenturyLink Field, the roof. I mean, every piece of that ring has something in it, and just those, one, like you said, the attention to detail that this organization has, two, doing things right, and then three, looking to get a classic and beautiful result, which I think that ring definitely did. The green stone in the middle with the eye, and then the blue, those sapphires around the edge, and being that they numbered 12, that the 12 was the magic number throughout that ring. It was cool, and I agree with you, Brandon. I'd love to have one too. You got $50K laying around?
Well, if you really want one, Paul, I did see a dude on Kickstarter who was making rings for the 12th man. And you could, order it up, and if you got so many orders, and you'd make a bunch of them, and it, instead of the name in the middle, it just had the 12. So, not really, so obviously, but I'm just saying.
That's dangerous, guys. That's a link that's going up. I'm going to be looking at that in about 10 minutes. So, thank you for reminding me. Well, hey, guys, we've gone a little long, and first of all, thank you for being on and staying on a little later than we had anticipated. But I think it was a great discussion, and really, overall, just a fantastic show tonight, and I can't thank you enough for joining me. We should do this again closer to maybe a preview show or something like that. Anything you guys ever need from me, I'd love to be on. But second, please tell the audience how they can listen to the podcast, where they can find you, website, all that neat stuff, and then where they can follow you on social sites.
Sure. I tell people if you can't find us online, you're just really not looking very hard.
Yeah, you don't know the internet.
But if you go to iTunes, search for Seahawkers Podcast. We're at SeahawkersPodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Seahawkers Podcast. Twitter, at SeahawkersPod. And, we're on Stitcher if you look for us there. So.
And on the Facebook page, you can find our hotline number. You can call and leave a message for the show, so that's kind of fun, too. I wish I remembered it off the top of my head, but I don't.
No, there's lots of ways to reach us. And, we, like Adam said earlier, it's about once a month in the off-season, but once the season starts rolling around, we'll get back to about weekly shows.
Yeah, and this has been a lot of fun, Paul. We appreciate you having us on for sure. We'd love to have you on the show as well. It would be a great interview because it's been fantastic.
Well, again, thank you for that, and thanks for being on tonight with me. The only question I have is, do you guys do your show live like I do? I don't know. I mean, is it a live thing that you record and then put back on, or how do you guys do that?
No, we record the night before and then put it together, and we don't really change anything. It's just, technologically why.
A little easier for us. Yeah, and plus, my schedule is pretty erratic, so being able to sit down at a scheduled time would be super difficult. So it gives us a little wiggle room.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you got to travel tomorrow, Adam, and thank you. I'm glad that the schedule worked out for this evening. So won't keep you guys any longer. Thank you so much for being on. I'll have all your guys' information posted on my website, 12for12s.com. That's 12for12s.com. And anything they can do to help you. Again, we're brothers in this, so thanks again, and let's just go Hawks, right?
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
All right, guys. Take care. Good night, all right?
Yeah, good night, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, folks. I just put myself on mute. Oh, well. Folks, that was Brandan and Adam, the Seahawks official podcast team, and they are just fantastic. That was a lot of fun tonight. I had a lot of interesting things in common with them, and I'd never talked to them. So that was really cool. Really check their stuff out. Do subscribe on iTunes to their show. They're on Stitcher, like they mentioned. Find them online and follow Facebook, like, all that neat stuff, and obviously on Twitter. Do get involved. So, again, awesome show tonight. I want to thank everybody that's listened. Thanks again to the listeners. Obviously, you're the ones that make this happen. I guess I kind of do, actually. I shouldn't say it like that. I do kind of make this happen. So I'll be a little bit narcissistic about that for myself tonight. This show would not, though, be growing the way it is if it wasn't for y'all, and it would not be getting the hits on the website daily like it is if it wasn't for y'all. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you, 12th man, 12th lady, and Hawks Nation around the world. I think this offseason, week 1 now, is kind of coming to an end. Again, week 2, just a couple of more weeks we got to get through, folks. July 25th or thereabout, that's when you're going to have camp start up, and it's official training camp down in Renton in the VMAC here in Washington State for those that aren't listening to us in Washington. Listen to all the past few shows. I know I mentioned this before and I didn't get into it, but again, last week, Football Girl was on, Jamie Nicole. She's fantastic. Listen to her. She's going to be coming out with a new show with Nicole, her friend from Twitter. She's a very big Seahawks win on Twitter. She's very big there in the community. Definitely listen to that show. It was really great. She's got a new show coming out, Diamonds in Defense. She's not exactly when, but follow her on all the different places you can find her. Obviously, all that information is posted on my site, 12for12s.com. 2 weeks ago, Gene Husak from the Seahawks Booster Club, the El Presidente. Check out that one, as well as 3 weeks ago in a big show a lot of people have really liked and enjoyed, Megan Granito, the newest contributor to NFLfemale.com from the area. She was excellent, a big hit with the masses, and again, incredible ratings. So thank you to all that, to all those that are big fans of Megan's. And her first, I was able to get her finally her first published article on 12 for 12s today. I didn't realize it had been out for so long, but it is posted there in the Daily Links page under today's listings. Lastly, the panel shows. This is my second panel show I've done. Previously, the one with the NFL Roundtable with Dennis Apagito from Talk Jets Radio, Jacob Westendorf from the Benches Packers Radio Network, as well as Chase Ruddig from the Raiders, Just Blog Baby. I'm going to try to do these at least like once a month or so as we wrap up for the season. And again, really fun. Great to talk all Seahawks again tonight. But that past show, check it out on YouTube, just the show itself. You can do that as well as on the different areas I mentioned before, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, now Stitcher, as well as Xbox and ZuneIn. You can find us there. All the Double Overtime brands and shows are underneath it. Check it out. Go and look and subscribe, please, for those, and like Facebook, my personal Paul Byer page, as well as 12 for 12's Radio's page, and then also my Twitter account, pbizzle, at pbizzle, P-B-I-Z-Z-E-L. Shout out to all those that helped me, all those that helped from the Double OT team, Phoebe, Rachel, and those fans out there, Joseph and Tina, all the retweets and so forth. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. The fellas down in Texas that listen to the show at Subway every week, I do appreciate you guys, and again, another shout-out to y'all. And also, again, just you guys know where to find me. Check it out. All the spots on the website, you can find everything you want to know about me from a social site perspective, as well as links to previous shows, archive shows, the 12 topics for each show, and these guests. Support every single one of these guests. We're all in this together, even though we're doing our own different things. Like I said, we're brothers and sisters in this, and it's part of fans supporting each other. And that's the one thing we can do as 12s to make ourselves better this year, support each other more. I can't wait to work with those guys and talk to them more, but Brandan and Adam were great from Seahawks official podcast. All right, well, hey, that's the end of the show, folks. I want to say good night and thanks for listening, obviously, to 12 for 12s. But as we always do, we have to wrap up this show with a little Iron Maiden. Iron up, or up the irons, as they say. and then I'll be finally back here to close it out. But again, one quick shout out to Norb Kawili from NorbCam on YouTube, and obviously supplying one of the songs I used tonight, We've Got Your Back. Fantastic work. Check out all NorbCam stuff, all Norb Kawili stuff on NorbCam on his YouTube page, as well as follow him on Twitter and Facebook. All those links are available on 12for12s.com. But to get rid and end this night, let's go ahead and go out to a little Iron Maiden, Up the Irons. I'll see you guys back here next week. This is 12 for 12, your host, Paul Beyer. Good night.
From the coast of gold,
All right, that's tonight's show for 12 for 12's radio. Again, thank you to everyone joining me tonight. Brandan and Adam from the official Seahawkers podcast, as well as Jason Coyner from the Madden Petition Initiative to get the LOB on the cover on Madden 15. So, again, follow everybody. And, again, thanks to everybody that joined me. Fantastic show this evening. Good night. God bless. And go Hawks.